The 24-25 season is over for the Golden State Warriors, going down 4-1 to the Minnesota Timberwolves in round two. And listen, I think we understood once Steph went down, we were on borrowed time. We were on borrowed time. The reality is our perspective, at least mine, our expectations, I think, changed in that game one win. Because if you remember, halfway through the Rocket series, most of us thought we were cooked. It was like Jimmy's tailbone, Steph's thumb, the energy, the age. And we squeak out that series and the expectations change. It was like they reset and Steph goes down and it's tough, man. Hats off to the Wolves. I don't want to discredit them. They've got a real shot. They've got a real shot of getting out of the West. If Julius Randle's going to play that way, I mean, he looked like Kevin Garnett in a Wolves uniform. Like an amazing series from him. But yeah, I don't have too much more to say on the series. I think it was it game 4 where we broke? That was the headline on the YouTube video, and the belief was gone, and you got it. I got it. You understood, like, we don't have enough. They know it. We know it. Everyone knows it. So I figured little state of the union here on the team, where things stand and going over things. Let's start with Pods, since he's such a hot topic of conversation. And look, we saw his limitations in this series. We did. It was good to see him have a good game here, just headed into the offseason when he had like 25, 30 points. He continued to play hard, right? And part of it is he went cold at the wrong time. Part of it is the Wolves' defense, their size bothered him, right? And then, you're seeing he's not a create a shot guy at this point in his career. He's just not. And so my question is, what does he look like in a pick and roll offense? Because he flashed that midi towards the end of the season that was really encouraging, and he had all those big games. I think that would be the key to it. But as far as the three ball goes, I do wonder, does he play too hard to ever be a truly consistent shooter? A lot of people are getting stand-up specials these days. And what you have to understand is it may not translate on TV. If you haven't been to a comedy show, it can completely change how you viewed it if you're there. The energy, the vibes, feeding off the crowd, it's a completely different experience. And Kevin Hart is headed out here to the Valley. So I'm going to go check out Kevin, because the movies are hit or miss, but the energy, the vibes of his performance, I think are going to be really up. And you know how I'm going to do it. SeatGeek. Over 28 million downloads, the #1 ticketing app. They rate the tickets on a 1 to 10 scale, so you know the value. It's just seamless all through your phone. And, any event that I've been going to over the last few years, it's a no-brainer to use SeatGeek. And so I'm going to hook you up. Use the code Alchemy10 to get 10% off your next set of tickets from SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets using the code Alchemy10. Click the link in the description, download the app so the code can be automatically added to your account. And you look at role players that do the dirty work, right? He does all those things. He takes charges. He's first to the floor. He rebounds, right? He goes 100 every second that he's on the floor. And that's why he's on the floor so much. But usually those guys aren't consistent shooters. That doesn't go hand in hand. Your energy is finite in a basketball game. And where you choose to allocate that is where you're going to shine. And so I think that there is an element of that with Pods as far as consistently giving you shot making. We know the form is fine as long as he's sticking that release. And you think moving forward, does his game morph more towards the offensive end? If you pay attention, this happens a lot in the NBA. A young guy comes in, kind of billed as a defender and a toolsy player. And for whatever reason, their trajectory as a team asks them to score more, they stop doing the little things, the dirty work, hitting the floor. They're not as good a defender as they were when they came into the league, as weird as that sounds. Now, I think that this is kind of who Pods is. That it's just innately in him to hit the floor and the physicality and all that. So I don't necessarily think that that's going to change, but I just point out that that's part of the give and take with Pods. in the shooting and the extra stuff. As far as the offseason goes in his approach and how he can get better, I think the real limitation for him physically on the offensive end is his hip mobility. He plays very upright. Like, he's quick enough, he's strong enough, he's certainly skilled enough, but he plays so upright that I think it's hard for him to turn the corner on defenders, and in particularly in the playoffs when guys get into his body and when he's ball handling, they kind of know, like, he doesn't have that hip bend, he doesn't play low enough to turn the corner on me. And so what I would suggest is get a hold of Andre Iguodala's guy. I know Andre was big into yoga towards the end of his career, and see if he can work on that hip mobility and play a little lower and turn the corner and expand that way. And again, I'm curious to see him in more pick and roll offense, if that midi can come along. And he's flashed signs of that Jalen Brunson, hostage dribble, take the bump, pump fake game. And so I think that physically, that's what I would focus on with Pods, as far as hip mobility, playing lower so he can turn the corner and just create a little more space. But, look, the frustration from the fan base with Pods, I get it. He plays a lot, right? And then there is kind of this optic that he's the teacher's pet as well. And so he's going to wear more blame than he should. And let's put into context moving forward, because I hear people writing him off. I was wrong. You were wrong. This, that. That's what we do on social media. I understand that. This was his first playoffs, right? And he goes against two of the bigger, better defenses in the league. And he's playing outside of the Steph system. And so, yeah, he had a bad playoff series. But he didn't fold. He didn't fold mentally. Yeah, he passed up some shots, and you saw Kerr get on him there, right? But okay, fine. Moses Moody, on the other hand, to me, and I get it, out of sight, out of mind once he's out of the series. And, there's a likability factor in everything we do, in all walks of life, of you're going to favor this guy and you're going to favor that guy. And that will be a topic later on in this conversation with someone else. But look, this was Pod's first playoff series, and he had a stinker against a big defense and then without outside of the system. Okay, fine. It's not time to write him off. Let's see how he bounces back from that. And again, hip mobility, there's some things to work on. At the same time, I think we saw his limitations. He's not a create a shot guy. He's going to be a second side attacker, and he needs other guys to break the defense. But again, Moses, on the other hand, this is year 4. He's been in 3 seasons of the playoffs, including that rookie year championship run in 22. 8 rounds of playoff basketball, and he was nowhere to be found on either side of the basketball in both series. And so if you want to dish out blame pie here, I get it. Pods is, you're watching him over and over again struggle to get shots up, so it's easy to blame that. But Moses was supposed to be able to give the Warriors 12, 15 points per game and be that crucial 5th spacer. That was the doing in of this series, and why it looks so bad is we didn't have spacing, right? Mo in the corner is supposed to shoot the 3, be a versatile defender. And, to me, it was like the processing speed for the playoffs. For whatever reason, he got in his head, and you could see him thinking out there. And he's not quick anyway. And so when you add him trying to think and process slowly out there, he couldn't even be out there. It was rough, man. And look, the dip in his shot, the dip is the dip. It's too late to get that out of there. He needs a larger window to get off that 3 ball. And when you're looking at these larger defenses that can close out, you see it becomes a problem. Now, halfway through the season, he kind of had a little breakthrough where he realized, if I hop to the shot, which means that the pass has to be accurate and on time to hit a foot replace and do a shot. But when he did that, he realized, it quickens my release. And so he had some success with that when he had that nice run in the back end of the season and he was starting, and that disappeared. But, if we're talking panic meter between Moody and Pods, my panic meter is way higher on Moody. If you actually look at the context of where they're at in their careers. And when he goes into the offseason, I think it's more of a mental approach. I think that he has to study the game and work on anticipating. Because we say make quick decisions, right? Make quick decisions. And some of that is what it is. It literally is making a quick decision. But really, in basketball, it's anticipation. And you look at Jimmy, Jimmy doesn't make any quick decisions. He just anticipates. He's anticipating the next step in the play. And so it looks like a quick decision. You're like, oh, he wanted that all along. And so Mo has to work on quick decisions as far as anticipation goes. Understand, okay, what's plan A, what's plan B? This is probably going to happen, instead of just kind of having to see it to believe it. And so I think he needs to take a mental approach to the offseason. Let's talk about Jimmy, though. Let's talk about Jimmy Butler. Is he hurt? Is he sick? Is he cooked? Maybe it's a little bit of all of that, right? I think when you're dealing with a cerebral player like Jimmy Butler, there's a ton of positives. And you saw it, like the way he integrated into the team, how he handled Draymond, how he handled Buddy, and how he scores. You know, he's just so cerebral with everything. But I think what comes with that is when he doesn't think he's got a chance to win, he shuts it down. And that really, to me, is the root of the problem in Miami. We can talk about the money, but why wouldn't they pay Jimmy? And I think Pat Riley was like, hey, man, I don't care where the team is at in the season and how good or bad we look. You need to go 100 all the time. That's Heat culture, right? And Jimmy, again, being the cerebral guy that he is, I think it's just, it goes hand in hand. He's so analytical. He's such a thinker. If he doesn't think he's got a chance, he's not going to give you everything. And I think after game 3, when it was that his last good game, or he had the 30-something, right? The analytical brain took over. The thinker took over, and he was like, I'm hurt, I'm old, and we don't have a chance. I'm going to take 8 or 9 shots. But to be fair to him, Kerr had him out there with Looney and GP too. He was looking at a packed paint with Gobert standing at the rim. That certainly didn't help his belief, right? That didn't help his belief. But where do we go moving into a full season with Jimmy Butler? Well, I think he certainly needs to be load managed. And that's probably a problem, right? Our 3 best players probably need to be load managed at this point in their careers. But the elephant in the room, he and Draymond don't really fit. You know, is it a horrible? No, like you've heard Draymond say it over and over again, winners win and we'll figure it out, right? Yeah, we get it. But they both want to operate as the hub, and neither of them really want to shoot from the perimeter. And so, listen, with all the stars that are going to be available this offseason, and believe me, you'll probably get tired of my offseason trade videos, but that'll be a part of the content for sure. And we'll talk about that at another time. I think you got to consider moving either one of them. Now, plenty of people have been like, Alk, there's no way they're trading Draymond. He and Steph are going to finish their careers together here in the next few years. And there's no way Steph would co-sign a Draymond trade. Probably. You're probably right. Right? If they were to make the move, would it be flipping Jimmy in some sort of big deal? Again, if it makes sense, not opposed to it. And y'all know I didn't want the Jimmy deal initially. I was very opposed to it, but I quickly fell in love with his game, how cerebral he is. And I was like, I was wrong. Obviously, like this looked good until it didn't, right? Until it didn't. But more likely this summer, I think what they need to do is ask Draymond to adapt. I know that's not an easy thing at his age and playing the way he has for so long. But I think he can shoot the 3 ball much better. We've seen phases of it. And he did overall this year. He did overall. But this offseason, Draymond, get in the gym with a real shooting coach, a real one. Not your homie from Michigan State, not your boy just getting you rebounds, and work on your rhythm. Work on different rhythms, different footwork, different types of 3-point shots. And I get it. when you're a guy that's not considered a shooter, it's like, and I do this as well as a trainer. Like if they're not a confident 3-point shooter, you only give them one style. You're like, this is your shot. Whether it's a hop, a 1-2 step, like you just got to replicate this over and over again because you got to start from phase one. But if he's truly going to stand out on the perimeter and be a confident 3-point shooter, you hear this analogy when they talk quarterbacks all the time from different throws and stuff, right? You got to have multiple clubs in your bag. Golf analogy, right? There's different clubs for different shots. And the same is true as a shooter, particularly from the 3-point line, right? There's the foot replace, there's the 1-2 step, there's the toe tap. There's different rhythms for different spots and different times that you get the ball. Have you just moved to the spot? Do you still have energy in your legs? Are you standing flat-footed? Was it a bad pass? Was it a look one way and then take it? There's multiple ways to find a rhythm in your 3-ball. And I believe Draymond could do it if he puts in the work. But at this point, that is asking a lot with all the accomplishments and how stubborn we know he is. But that would be the answer to the Jimmy Draymond fit, is Draymond getting real comfortable in those corners and just along the 3-point line. I think he could do it if he wanted to. But overall, I don't have any complaints about Draymond's playoffs. I really don't. Like, he had a couple stinkers, couple of emotional outbursts. But overall, like, to ask him to battle Houston's front line and then go into this Minnesota series and Randall and Gobert, he ran out of gas. Like, I don't really have any complaints. I thought he gave us what we thought he could give us, But yeah, we'll see. The Draymond trade talks will always continue for me until they can't any longer. Steph, I just hope he approaches this offseason differently. Now, not playing in the Olympics will certainly help. I think both LeBron and Steph wore that towards the end of the year. But I would suggest, and I know some of you are going to say, "Who are you to suggest that?" All I can do is say what I would suggest. But that he takes longer of a rest period, take more time off than you typically do, and ramp up into the season even later. Just try to pace yourself. Historically, Steph, he loves the game so much and he loves the process of it. It's harder to keep him out of the gym than get him in the gym, right? But take a longer period of time off and then ramp up later, even if that means you don't have a hot start to the season. I know some will say, well, we need every game in this Western Conference. Touche, right? But I believe Steph has 1 or 2 more seasons at this level. I do, where he can be the system and carry. Obviously, health is a huge, big part of that. And then in theory, the hope would be with Jimmy here and retooling this roster, he doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting in the beginning of the season. And then fingers are crossed that he's healthy towards the end and he just has more juice. But that's all I got to say on the chef. Kerr. The battle lines are drawn in Dub Nation. The battle lines are drawn. I get it. And I know a lot of you are like, why don't you listen? I admittedly have a blind spot to coaching. Maybe because I coached, certainly not at that level, right? But no, I think for me, I tend to focus on what's happening on the court rather than who's on the court. Like, you only have so much bandwidth when you're focusing on a game. And while some of you are like, why are these 5 on the floor? I'm literally looking at like, why are they going under this? Or why is this guy not doing that type of stuff? More maybe from like a trainer's perspective. But, the formula with Steph and the system has worked for so long. It's such a proven commodity. He's bound to it. I think we all understand that. I get it, right? But my main issue is when Steph's not playing, he's still bound to it, right? He's still bound to it. And we'll talk Kuminga here in a second. But as silly as this sounds, but the fact that he didn't play Quentin Post in this series was like a major red flag to me. It really was, man. And I get it. Post looked bad last night. What did you expect? He's been on ice the whole series. He never gave him the opportunity to get comfortable in the series. And you heard me after every breakdown, like, hey, we're in a zone anyway. We need the spacing. Like, you want Jimmy to take over. He's looking at Gobert, Randall, McDaniels is edging over, right? And you've got GP2 and Looney bunched up in the dunker spot. That was crazy to me. And, again, to look at that matchup game after game and say, and Kerr had this concept, we're going to win with defense. We can't outscore them. Okay, fine. That can be your initial thought without Steph. But after a couple games, clearly that wasn't the case. And again, it was a lack of adaptability from Steve. And then the Kuminga conundrum. First and foremost, Kuminga always put up big numbers when Steph doesn't play, right? It's very clear. I think we all see this. He's a guy that needs a green light, right? He's a guy that needs a green light. And whether you like his style or not, and what side of the Kuminga argument that you fall on, clearly he can be a 20-point per game scorer. Now you say on a winning team, right? We can get into that. But do you remember towards the end of the season, there was a huddle where Steph got caught on a mic telling Steve he wants Guillen. And it was either Guy or Kuminga, like the way the rotation was towards the end of the game. And he was like, no, I want Guillen. I think that part of this Kerr-Kuminga thing is Steve shielding Steph from the fact that Steph didn't want to play with Kuminga. If Steph wanted Kuminga out there, he'd have been out there the entire year. That's the reality of the situation. But, that said, Steve did show his favoritism. He didn't handle it right? He played favorites. And that's what I think really got people in their feelings. But listen, he played favorites just like your mom and dad did, just like you do, right? Like that's a part of life. Coworkers, wherever you go day to day, there's favorites. And Steve mishandled the situation with Kuminga. And I also think that when you're in the twilight of your career, and again, it doesn't have to be basketball, it doesn't have to be professional sports. I think people tend to make decisions they wouldn't make in the middle of their careers, where they're still hungry for more achievement. They're still worried about the next step. Kerr's a made man. He's got as many rings as fingers almost, right? And so some of these decisions of, hey, let's get Loon out there, or I really like Moses type of thing. Guy's been working hard. These are decisions that I don't think he necessarily would make if he wasn't such a made man. And so, listen, I understand the frustration, and I think Steve deserves to be criticized for certain things, but I also think that it's more of a group decision than it's being made out to be as far as how Kuminga was handled and some of these things are handled. And what y'all have to understand is Steph and Steve are joined at the hip. As long as Steph's going to be here, Steve's going to be here. And so part of me is just like, all right, well, that it is what it is. Like, I don't even really want to talk about it. We know Steve, and we know what he's going to do, and we know how Steph wants to play. But I'm happy for JK. I'm happy for Kuminga. And it looked like he took a real step in such a difficult scenario. And he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid. I had said before, I think the damage has been done. It's interesting, though, because you keep hearing Lacob, how much of a fan he is of Kuminga. And, does that supersede? I don't know. Who knows what the relationships are behind closed doors? But I think the Kerr-Kuminga relationship, I don't know if that, I can't say it can't be reconciled, but it just seems like it's not a fit, especially if Steph is a part of that equation. And so a sign and trade this summer, Kuminga's going to get paid. And, he's going to go to a team where he has that green light to be that guy, get downhill. And it's going to be, it's going to be sour for a lot of the fan base who's been rooting for him to see him doing it in another uniform. I saw someone tweet and say, Kuminga's going to go to a bad team, score 20 a game. They're going to lose and everyone's going to be mad about it. You mean Jordan Poole? That scenario? I don't know. But I think that, I don't see him staying around the way it's played out, even though he had these big couple games here. And so hopefully it works out for both sides. It's a sign and trade. He gets to a spot where he can be himself, and the Warriors get a better fit back in return, preferably a bigger, better fit. a big body better fit. But again, we'll have a lot of time to talk about trades and moves as the offseason picks up here. And I'll remind you, the Valkyries season opener Friday at Chase Center. I will be doing the breakdowns on my Patreon. I'll talk some here on YouTube as well. I'll cover some more of the playoffs, just here and there. It's not going to be like an every night thing, but try and get some live streams in without having to do these patron breakdowns of the Warriors. It takes so much of my energy to do. I'll have more time to dabble into different types of basketball content. And then as always, if you don't know, Patreon is the best way to support me. This is my job. And so this summer, there's a lot of content, summer league games, draft, and all sorts of stuff. So I'll leave that link in the description and we'll keep it moving. We'll keep it moving. But overall, man, I'm not really mad at the season. I thought it was a fun season. It was a roller coaster ride. It felt like two different seasons. They gave us ultimately all you can ask for in a bunch of games to be excited for. How many times this season were you waiting throughout the day for a big game? That's really, I know we're a spoiled fan base, but at the end of the day, you want to be relevant and you want games to get up for, to be looking forward to, be nervous for. And they gave us a ton of those. So we'll head into the offseason, Valkyrie coverage, and what looks like a big summer of movement across the league. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.